This is Jerome Corsi. Today is Wednesday. It's June 28th, 2023. Thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com. Our first story today I want to cover is that the sun is actually in a maximum. Let me explain to you what that means. It means that the sun, which has a variance in how hot or intense it burns, and that's measured usually by the number of sunspots. When the sun is very active, it has a lot of sunspots. When the sun is not very active, it's dormant and it doesn't have a lot of sunspots. Now, this is an important factor in climate change, much more than carbon dioxide. I mean, our climate changes. It's called weather, people. It's called weather. Changes. It's not the same every day. It's a hard concept for the left to get. Not because we are here. The Earth has had weather for a long, long time, billions of years. Earth is like 4.5 billion years old. It's hugely old in human time. I mean, that's geologic time. Now, biblical time, people will argue with that, but we're not talking about biblical time here. So the Earth has 80% of the Earth's history. There was nothing living on the surface of the Earth. It's too hot, too many gases, much more carbon dioxide. Not because of, it wasn't hot because of the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide follows warming. It doesn't cause warming. The science of the so-called global warming, climate change is so much junk that it's hard to comprehend how it ever got any credence at all. At any rate, the sun is at a maximum. When the sun's at a maximum, it has more sunspots. And what they're concerned about is that the astronomers have been watching the sun in the sun cycle 25. It's the 25th major cycle the sun's gone through in the time we've measured it, which doesn't extend back all that far. Now, certainly not in geological time. And it's been active since April 2019. The sun's become more active, more solar flares, these coronal mass ejections, which is just huge amounts of fire sent out into space, geomagnetic storms. Now, these geomagnetic storms can hit the Earth, and when they hit the Earth, they have the ability to cause electromagnetic disturbances. Electromagnetic disturbances can affect all kinds of systems on Earth. They, for a long time, was irrelevant because we didn't have any electronics. But now, where we have GPS systems, we've got cell phones, we've got TV on satellite, we've got all kinds of other elaborate communication systems that depend on transmission of signals, that a geomagnetic storm or a flare from the sun could cause massive disruption. So I want to read you this is from Live Science. This is how they measure. In 2022, there were five-fold more Class C and Class M solar flares than were in 2021. And year on year, the number of the most powerful X-class solar flares is also increasing, according to the spaceweatherlive.com. First half of 2023 logged more X-class flares than all of 2022, and at least one has directly hit the Earth. Okay, now what they're concerned about is that these could be very, very disruptive and costly because our grid system might get impacted by the solar flares, and that could cause massive outages of power. And these are the power, the forces that affect weather on Earth are massive. They are not a little more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, in the book I've written, and again, if people will read these things, I've written a whole chapter on Sun Heats Earth. And right here, this book right here, Truth About Energy, Global Warming, Climate Change. And I point out that when the sun is at a minimum, we have essentially an ice age. We had a little ice age during the Napoleonic era. But these are massive effects that are so powerful they're beyond human control. I read a section here called "The Chilling Stars." There were two, I believe, Swedish scientists, Svensmark and Christensen, who published a paper where they determined that the amount of cosmic ray activity that comes from supernebula explosions that hit Earth affect the formation of clouds on Earth. They reported an observed variation of 3 to 4% of global cloud cover that varied enormously with cosmic ray flux. Increased cosmic ray activity led to increased cloud cover, while reduced cosmic activity led to reduced cloud cover. The two scientists also reported that the Earth's magnetic field increased when the active sun produced active sunspots. The Earth's magnetic field decreased when the sun produced a minimum, entered a minimum with decreased sunspot activity. The Earth's magnetic field acts as a shield blocking cosmic rays incoming from outer space. They concluded that a sufficiently robust mechanism existed to explain how and why cosmic ray activity coming from outer space impacted by solar magnetism could increase or decrease Earth's cloud cover. And they tested that out because of the high energy partlets and cosmic rays that coming from exploding stars. They knock electrons out of air molecules. This produces ions, that is, positive and negative molecules in the atmosphere. Many of you studied chemistry. The ions help the formation of clusters of mainly sulfuric acid and water molecules to form and become stable against evaporation. This process is called nucleation and results in small clusters, aerosols. These small aerosols need to grow nearly 1 million times in order to have an effect on clouds. The second role of ions is they accelerate the growth of small aerosols into cloud condensation nuclei, seeds on which the liquid water droplets form to make clouds. The more ions, the more aerosols become cloud condensation nuclei. And so from these points, they concluded that when the sun is lazy, magnetically speaking, there are more cosmic rays and more low clouds, and the Earth's temperature is cooler. When the sun is active, fewer cosmic rays reach the Earth, and with fewer low clouds, the world warms up. The sun became unusually active during the 20th century, and as a result, that's why we experience some of the global warming effects on Earth. It had nothing to do with carbon dioxide. Cooling and warming of around 2 degrees have occurred repeatedly over the last 10,000 years as the sun's activity and the cosmic ray influx have varied. Over millions of years, much more significant variations of up to 10 degrees centigrade occur as the sun and Earth travel through the galaxy, with regions visiting regions, the galaxy, with fewer or more exploding stars. Now, can you imagine how complex that is and how that's real climate science? Okay, now I'm going to show you what bogus climate science is. That's next. So here's what you're being told. This is the information you're being fed by the mainstream media, which is about as effective today as actually it's detrimental to read the mainstream media because you're just getting bombarded with lies. And here's bogus science. Okay, so now our geniuses at the EU have decided that blocking out the sun is a good idea in order to stall climate change. We're going to block the sun. Brilliant. Now, blocking the sun, they have come up with a large tech solution. This is called geoengineering. That's what they do. They geoengineer. Okay, well, geoengineering means that you can scatter particles in the upper atmosphere that act like a cloud cover and deflect the sun's rays. They call this solar radiation modification. And the UN has an entire program an environmental program that has explored the solar radiation modification in a realistic way. And what they have planned to do is to pollute the environment with high altitude particles, aerosols. It involves injecting aerosols into the atmosphere so a small amount of sunlight is deliberately reflected into space to cool the planet. This process is similar to what happens when volcanoes erupt and aerosols are rushed into the stratosphere, with measurable cooling following. If you block the sun, you may actually increase cloud activity, and that will cool the Earth, just as when the sun is in a dormant period. It may cool the Earth. All these things are possible to do. But, turning off the sun is probably not a good idea. The sun is why we're here. It's really a very, very complex concept for the left to understand. I wrote a whole chapter on this book called Sun Heats Earth. I want to read you a couple paragraphs of Sun Heats Earth, just to show you how, and by the way, this geoengineering is serious stuff. They're poured billions of dollars into the technology, and they actually do. John Holdren, who was the science czar for Obama, actually had designed these floating ocean going kind of crafts that threw out smoke and aerosols in order to block the sun. And that was published, I believe, in Foreign Affairs or one of the big magazines. At any rate, Sun Heats Earth. And let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to read a paragraph. PhD meteorologist Roy Spencer, one of my heroes on this whole subject, formerly a senior scientist for climate studies at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, and currently a principal research scientist at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Alabama, charges the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change with expressing the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere in a manner intentionally designed to alarm a scientifically naive public. The IPCC typically reports the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in units of tons, claiming that total global emissions are running in the range of 30 billion tons per year. What the IPCC fails to specify is the total weight of the Earth's atmosphere is probably 5 quadrillion tons. A quadrillion is the number 1, followed by 15 zeros. So when you come up with this kind of a percentage, you're coming up with a very, very small percentage of the atmosphere. It's 0.00003 is the total amount of annual global carbon dioxide emissions, 30 billion divided by 1 million billion, for a result of 0.00003, 300 thousandths of 1%. Okay, so the weather here on Earth is really a self-regulating thermometer, and the changes that we have that come with the sun, with the ocean currents, these are not things we can control. But what we can do is the scientists can convince you on this neo-Marxist agenda to stop doing things that are productive. In other words, they want you to do destructive things. We have to stop using hydrocarbon fuels because they emit carbon dioxide. Well, that's going to mean that energy costs increase for the economy as a whole. It's going to mean that we are going to go through economic recessions because the cost, the billions of dollars that we have to put into solar and wind and batteries, which don't work. They're not scalable. They're going to make the grid more vulnerable to blackouts. We have abundant, cheap oil, coal, and natural gas, and we're not using the coal. We're letting it sit in the ground. The 1850s, they worried. These are these I'm writing right now are all together. They're going to produce a global crash. I was reading this morning, going through the which is we had a big again that peaked about 2021, 22 coming out of the pandemic. Everybody was looking to move out of New York City and other places. And now the housing prices are going down. The interest rates are going to continue to increase this year. And it's going to be more difficult for people to have jobs. A lot of companies are firing. And by the way, I covered a report. I was going to cover this, but one of the major plants, EV plants, and it was I just saw it flashed on the news, is closing down. It's in Lordsville, the Lordsville Motors facility. The Lordstown Motor Corporation said it's in danger of failing because Foxconn, which is a Taiwanese company, is looking to back away from an agreement to invest up to $170 million in the commercial electric vehicle startup. People are pulling out of this market because they see, first of all, the demand for cars is going down and the EVs don't work. And the people who have them are beginning to understand the difficulties of operating these vehicles. It makes a very nice commercial on television, but it doesn't work. Okay, Chris, you want to quickly comment on this? Because I've got a lot I want to cover today. And
yeah, we've seen a lot of these EV companies, and we've seen a lot of these. Well, again, Solandra is not an EV company, but it's one of those green companies that the Democrats seem to have favored over the years, and they just go down. I can't fathom why we're investing taxpayer money in some of these companies. I'm not sure about as far as Lordstown Motors is concerned, but EVs are being overly pushed to a population which is not necessarily rejecting them at this point, but saying, "Hey, where's the practical use? What's going to happen during a big storm? And where the heck am I going to fill this up somewhere outside of a major city?" There are major questions surrounding our grid, everything else. This is impractical, and it just keeps rolling. And as far as blocking out the sun, this whole thing about blocking out the sun, didn't that come from Gates one of these days recently too? Bill Gates tried to pull this one off.
Oh, they're always blocking out the sun is one of their big genius ideas. It comes around all the time.
Right.
Just turn the sun off. We'll be okay.
Yeah. I say never trust a politician or some kind of mogul who gets policy inspiration from
a Simpsons cartoon.
Yeah, from the Simpsons cartoon. From what's his name? Oh, his name was Mr. Burns. That was the nuclear power plant head. He was kind of the evil businessman, if you will. This guy right here. He tried to block out the sun in one episode, just to get more people to consume his nuclear energy. This is, first off, nuclear energy is nice and clean. I'll say that. Secondly, again, getting policy ideas from this guy, never trust anybody who pulls that off or tries to pull that sort of thing off.
Well, these are the people the types of geniuses, evil geniuses that are behind the climate change movement. Let's go to the next story right away. This is I'm covering the Biden, Trump, I think effectively called Joe Biden, Joe Bidden, like bidding, bidding for foreign influence.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good. I liked it too. I'm getting sick of the Department of Justice going after Trump. They released this tape about Trump, said, "I've got these intelligence documents." Trump this document on Iran may or may not exist about Iran, Israel attacking Iran. He's not being charged for mishandling classified information. Being charged for a violation of the Espionage Act of 1917. It's an obscure piece of legislation. I can't think of people, very rarely is it used in modern times. I guess Chelsea Manning was convicted under it, but it really involves giving U.S. secret information to enemies, and Trump isn't doing that. This is lawfare. It's using law. Okay, at the same time, using law to defeat the Constitution. At the same time, it's coming out today, and I'm going to start making this available, publicizing it. There is this report. You can see it right there. It's a Marco Polo report. And Chris, I put into the chat here the link for it. You can go find this link. That's the report. Now, I want to show you this report. I'm hesitant to open up a page. Let me make sure I open it up. That's the wrong page to open it up to. I mean, this has got all the nudity and everything else from Hunter's laptop. It is a massive color production. Okay. And it has all the nonsense, the filth. I think it documents something like 463 crimes that Hunter did. And it goes through very detailedly. Okay. It goes through when it was done, where it was done, who it was done with, what law it violated. And you see the U.S. statutes, the various statutes. Okay. Now you can get this on the internet, and you get this electronically. And the link in the article shows you how to get this book, read it electronically. Chris is showing you what it looks like. It's that report. It's up there on the internet. It doesn't cost anything. You can go read it, see the whole report. And it's scurrilous. I mean, this is disgusting. I think if people see what Biden did, and this is the guy who's, president of the United States with foreign influence. This is the guy we supposedly elected in 2022 to be the chief executive of the country. And what they're doing is they're destructing the country, with moral values, teaching our children in kindergarten who have no idea what sex is about, teaching them about transgender and reading them transgender story hours. You've got librarians saying if there's a conservative group meeting in the library, have a pride event and fill the library with rainbows and people prancing around. I mean, this is what they did in ancient Rome. This is the decadence of Babylon. And we're going to get Jonathan Cahn on the show. I'm going to find out how to get in touch with him today. I've known Jonathan Cahn for years, and I want him on about his new book, I'll pull it up here in a minute. But I want people to know that this report's available. And we're going to do more to get this out and let people access it and see it for yourself. And Chris, again, a short comment, but I think that seeing this and just, it's hard to read. The thing is so disgusting. I mean, I can pick any one. Shortly after posing naked with a female who was having sex with him, it's a little bit more graphic than that, Hunter paid her first-class flight to visit him. When asked about Marco Polo, about her interactions with Hunter, the female said that he was just a strip club customer, even though the pair's conversations were voluminous and varied, including multiple photos and videos of the female's daughter, as well as intimate moments at home. Isn't that lovely?
And it's something this guy would probably never be doing without the Biden family influence around the world.
And his money.
Yeah, true. Well, he's bringing in more as long as the big guy gets a nice cut.
Yeah, and the law enforcement agencies do nothing. Do absolutely nothing. They're investigating Trump because they hate Trump.
Right. They're all part of this, because if you're not going to prosecute fairly, you're part of this. You're part of the situation. You're part of this problem. You're part of the corruption.
If we have a criminal government, we don't have government. If the government's being run by criminals, and it is. Here's another one. Danny O'Brien, Joe, former chief of staff and 2008 presidential campaign golfer, congratulated Democratic hatchetman Mark Elias, who was with Perkins Coie, on his lawfare victories after Joe's election as president, but it's spelled small p resident, so resident, not president. O'Brien is the executive vice president and head of government relations at Fox News. And Elias is the guy who was participating with Hillary in creating the Russian collusion hoax. Perkins Coie has been a Biden, Obama law firm since Obama came to the White House. And again, it is engaged in lawfare. But these people do just fine, don't they? Here we have black tie events, Obama at the White House. These people are all, we got drug criminals running the country, doing our foreign relations.
And of course, people doing business with enemy governments, negotiating with these enemy governments on behalf of our taxpayers and our people.
If the government of the United States is criminal, let's put the government in jail.
This is what makes the Trump prosecution rather interesting, because this opens the doors to major prosecutions against Hillary and Biden. I know we shouldn't be holding our breaths, but let's say the right people get in power, and all of a sudden the Trump prosecution sets a precedent.
Well, we're going to the more people who know about it, and I've done this before, and we're going to get people to know about it. Okay, so the next story here, which is this Anheuser-Busch story, and evidently, finally, Anheuser-Busch fired these two marketing transgender geniuses that put a transgender guy with this bizarre smile dressed as a woman on a Bud Light can. And so now people are all calling it Butt Light, B-U-T-T Light. And they aren't drinking it anymore. Butt Light has lost 30% of its market. And these are issues, the Modelo Especial, which is a Mexican beer, is now taking over Bud Light. Bud Light sales are down 24% for the week ending June 3rd, where Modelo Especial was up 12%. Corona used to be the big Mexican beer. Now this Modelo is taking over. And they're trying to stop the bleeding. Yeah, well, good luck. Because once they've trashed their brand, and I think what we're finding is the American people are getting disgusted with this. Now, as the economy deteriorates, who really cares about a gay pride parade? Yet they still win points. They, first of all, wanted just to desensitize us. So these are people who love each other. Can't we just accept that they love each other? I think Americans are tolerant. But when they want to teach your children to be transgenders, when they have gay prides, and I was watching some of these videos where they're chanting, we're coming after your children. Well, I think this is where the line gets crossed, because it was never about tolerance. It was about grooming and desensitizing us in order to where the Hunter Biden stuff, the trans stuff, all this is supposed to be normal. Well, if we want to live this way, my next story is where we're going to be pretty quickly. And that is that Iran is now very close to testing its first nuclear weapon. Now, I've been warning people about this since 2006 when I wrote Atomic Iran. And for all my books who did extremely well, I couldn't get anywhere with Atomic Iran. I couldn't even get news interviews on it in the time when you could get on Fox. Again, the mainstream media, and by the way, Fox is close to not worth watching anymore. I'd say it's there. So according to foreign intelligence from European countries, they suggest that Iran is rapidly advancing its nuclear program. Why not? We got these guys running the country. They're probably owned by Iran. They're owned by everybody else. And they're spending the money on prostitutes and drugs, while our cities are being overrun by homelessness and drugs and crime. Now, despite these economic troubles that Iran has had, Iran is now getting to export increasing amounts of oil, which give it more revenue. And as Iran continues to develop its nuclear weapons capability, Iran has got increasing money to spend on terrorism throughout the region. I see Hamas is now even in Sweden. Hamas is a radical Sunni, which the Iranians are Shiites. They're a brand of Islam. They hate the Sunnis. If they get rid of Israel, they'll next Iran will go after Saudi Arabia. So they go after Israel, then they go after us, then they go after Saudi Arabia. And they believe that this will lead to an apocalyptic event and the world will be ruled by Sunni Muslims. This is, the fringe of Muslim thinking that is dangerous. And I've constantly said that Islam needs to go through a reformation. The billions of people who are Muslim in the world just mostly want to live peacefully. And the whole religion has aspects which have to come into the modern era, except that the modern era is going back to paganism. So a highly controversial report has come out saying that Iran is close to developing its testing its first nuclear weapon. Separate intelligence reports published by Germany, the Netherlands, and Sweden during the first half of this year have said that the Iranian regime, quote, has consistently sought to obtain technology for its illegal nuclear program and ballistic missile apparatus. With the Netherlands General and Intelligence Security Service claiming that Tehran's nuclear advancements, including the enrichment of uranium, brings the option of possible Iranian first nuclear test closer. Well, when Iran explodes its first nuclear test and announces it to the world, we will be in a new era. It will be the era in which, and increasingly I'm seeing more and more discussion about nuclear weapons being utilized, including Putin bringing nuclear weapons into Belarus. When the world goes insane like this, we enter this kind of a dark, godless period. We are going to have economic destruction. We're going to have bizarre sexual practices. We're going to have families ruined. And we don't stop killing babies. The left is still out there finding ways to get around all the Supreme Court decisions, including the most recent one, which sends back to the states the decision on whether or not to legalize abortion. The red states are getting increasingly separate, distinct from the blue states. Blue states are getting unlivable. California, San Francisco is a failed city. New York is about to put into place a toll for cars in lower Manhattan. They want to raise $1 billion for the subway system. The subways aren't safe anymore. All kinds of bizarre incidences, stabbings, incredible violence going on in the subways. For years, I've traveled in the subways safely in New York and never really worried about it. Today, I wouldn't go in them. They're too dangerous. We're living in a very dangerous world, and it's because of this insanity. Now, if you like the program and like what we're doing, I encourage you to follow our sponsors. In particular, we did a program yesterday with Dean Heskin, who is my co-author. We'll be putting that up on the channel, on the Truth Central. And please go to this. If you don't have some gold, and it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, but have some gold, because it will help you come through the next period of time, in which I think our dollar is going to be dramatically under attack, and we're going to be going through an economic meltdown that will be more severe than 2008, 2009. Real estate's going to crash. Commercial real estate is now in trouble. 2008, 2009, it was simply the subprime real estate market, and it crashed the mortgage-backed securities and the derivatives, which are advanced bets, the trillions of dollars that when they go bad, companies like Bear Stearns close their doors. Lehman Brothers. Take a look at My Vital C. People saying I'm looking younger. Well, My Vital C revitalize your hair. It's great creams. I've had color come back into my hair, which is not colored. It was gray, and now the color is coming back. It gets revitalized. This carbon 60 I find to be a remarkable molecule with longevity principles. And I will be launching some telemedicine programs here with My Vital C. GetLongevityMeds.com is in preparation. It will be launched no later than this fall. So we're doing a lot. Take a look at Eric Smith's decision technology. We'll be doing more with Eric to get this out there, constantly educating you as to the ESG investing and how much it takes away from your retirement funds. Think about getting some of your retirement funds into gold and silver, which are going to appreciate instead of the stock market. I'm warning you now, the stock market will crash. It's doing well today. Well, the Fed Reserve didn't raise interest rates this time, and the Biden administration is still printing more money. There's a lot of liquidity, but the money supply is shrinking because business activity is slowing down. and EV plants are closing. You're going to find a lot of this wind and solar doesn't work. And when we come into the need for, either economic shutdown, the EU is already in recession. Take a look at the Macmillan Agency. If you've got annuities with this high interest rated environment, that can do a 1035 exchange if you're out of your surrender charges and get you a better yielding annuity. Just fill out the form. We're doing a lot in these sponsors to bring you value. So please look at our sponsors. We're on a lot of channels at the upper right-hand corner. And Chris, you want to say a couple words? We're a little bit over time, and I want to wrap it up, but I'm going to give you a final word here.
Anheuser-Busch, I know you alluded to them a little while ago. The damage is done for this company. I know they have other brands that they can use and push out to the forefront, but they really did ruin their brand. Businesses should take a look at themselves and see what money they're bleeding into the diversity, equity, and inclusion departments, and the diverse and these hirings that seem to make companies think they're hip, or at least what's the word? Kind of being strong armed by the far left to
they want to be politically
right.
They want to be politically correct, which is nonsense.
That's the best way to put it. But they have to look at this and say, this is going to be a disaster if we keep putting these people in powerful positions and having them make decisions for us. That's a big deal. Disney's seeing this happen. Other companies have seen this, but Bud Light will serve as an example. Look what happened with Target.
These people are crazy.
Right. Look what happened with Target.
If you want to let the inmates run the asylum, you're going to get a crazy world.
Well, they think it's young and hip. It's been like this with advertising since the 60s and 70s. You want to try to get in with the young and hip crowd, but the far left media has led people, even in high positions, to believe that this is young and hip. This whole PC thing is young and hip. Wokeness is young and hip. It's not.
It's not. It's destructive. And okay, so unbridled sex. Hunter Biden is also unbridled drugs and corruption. Where's he going to get all the money to fund this lifestyle? He gets it from foreign governments who buy his corruption to destroy America. And we then get led down this path where we're, instead of realizing that the dynamics of the sun and its interaction with Earth are God created. These are laws that involve cosmic rays, involve how clouds are formed, involve science, involve chemistry, but we don't teach that stuff anymore. We're teaching transgenderism in the schools. We don't need to know science. You don't need to know how to do math because you've got a calculator or a computer. It'll do the math for you. Yeah, well, when they turn off the electricity, how are you going to add? How are you going to divide? How are you going to know where you are? How are you going to communicate? Because all this stuff is dependent upon a metaverse, an artificial world that you live in, and the rules of that world are not necessarily the rules that God created. If you want to live like Hunter Biden, if you want to allow this guy and his father supporting his lifestyle, who doesn't appear to even know half the time or most of the time where he is, this is insanity, and it's got to come to an end. We've got to get back to God, and we'll do what we can here to get this word out, and we can do a lot, because where God's message is being supported and advanced, God will be heard. In the end, God will always win. God's going to win here too. God always wins. Created this place, he can unplug it anytime he wants. God always wins. And we need to come to a recognition of 2 Chronicles 7:14. We need to get down on our knees and ask repentance that we have allowed this world to get to this stage. This is disgraceful, and it's evil, and it won't last forever. But if God ends it, it would be a lot better that we ended it. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. This is Wednesday. It's June 28th, 2023. This is the Truth Central. What we're talking about may not be what you want to hear. It may not be the happy talk news that you can get now today on any of the major news stations. Hate Trump, hate Trump, hate Trump. That's all they're going to tell you. Turn them off. This is thetruthcentral.com. We're broadcasting every weekday. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. God bless.